Hey folks, welcome to the very first ever episode of Formula 1 Review Podcast. My name is Cam Brennan. I am one of your co-hosts, and I am joined by one of my best friends and fellow F1 enthusiast, Mr. Dave Hogue. What's up, man?
Just looking forward to the new podcast and talking some Formula 1.
Yes, Dave and I have been podcasting together for 15 whole years, but this is our first venture into podcasting Formula 1. We've been fans for years. Was it 2022 that we went to the Austin Grand Prix?
I believe that to be correct.
Yes. Gosh, I can't believe that was almost 4 years ago.
Yeah,
3 full seasons. Will be 4 years here in a few months once we get to Circuit of the Americas. But this is episode 0, our preview show for the 2026 season of Formula 1, which, as everybody knows at this point, is going to be a big old guessing game, probably for the first half of the season, as to who's going to be good because of all the regulation changes. So before we get to that stuff, Dave, should we talk about, well, I guess some of the news that did come out of testing is that the top 4 are still the top 4, it looks like, right? Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, based on a slew of different, statistics, results, lap times, that sort of stuff. I do believe one day Hamilton just absolutely obliterated the field on the practice start, which, gives me nostalgic vibes. But the other thing that I read about coming out of testing in Bahrain is shock of all shocks, Aston Martin's not doing great.
No, and the thing is, I don't think anybody thought they were going to be as bad as they are, especially given that the Honda power unit seems to be one of the biggest issues.
Well, I think there's a reason that Red Bull no longer has Honda engines. Okay. They made the switch over to Ford. So there's, if you want more on what happened at testing, just go to Formula1.com. They've got the 5 winners and 3 losers and the things that we know and the question, all those silly articles. I would rather move on to some of the more interesting stuff, Dave, if that's okay with you. Do you want to walk us through the new teams this year?
So there's one true new team, which means we're going from 20 cars on the grid to 22, and that is the American auto manufacturer Cadillac, or GM probably is they've chosen Cadillac, but it is, General Motors overall that is putting this team together. So yeah, we got Cadillac.
That's very funny to me. Because when I think sporty American cars, I think giant Cadillacs. Okay, whatever.
And over the recent years, they've made some.
Yeah, they've made sportier, cars to try and compete with like the Mercedes 5 Series and that sort of stuff.
And Cadillac has.
I said Mercedes 5 Series. Oh my God, I meant the BMW 5 Series. I am so embarrassed. This must really be our first episode.
So Cadillac has been in racing. They're not completely new.
That's true.
To the racing scene. And they've had some success. And then our second new team, which is a renaming, being purchased by another owner, is Audi. So 2025, they were Kick Sauber. And, they seem to have a completely new car from what we saw this week in terms of testing. And at least in my estimation, had more one of the conservative designs, more traditional designs with the Formula 1, didn't seem to go out on a limb on a lot of what they did. So those are our 2 new teams. Cadillac, I think the biggest thing for me about Cadillac and the excitement there is we have Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas back on the Formula 1 grid.
Yes. As listeners of this show will learn quickly, I am a big Bottas fan. I think he's hilarious. His social media is great, and I think he's a pretty decent driver. But we'll see.
Yeah, and probably, I haven't looked at the exact, but I'm guessing they have one of the teams with the most experience in terms of their drivers.
Yeah, and I would say probably the most average experience, right? Because you got like Alonso and Stroll, and Alonso's going to tip that scale so heavily because he's been around forever. But I think, probably
it's either them or Ferrari.
Top 3, I would say top 3 pairings of average number of Grand Prix they've driven, right? Yeah, because like Verstappen's going to totally outweigh Hadjar. Sainz has been around for a long time, Albon's too. But yeah, I think Ferrari probably is, you're right, between Leclerc and Hamilton. We'll see. I would love to do that math at some point. But anyways, yeah, so new teams, exciting. We're going to go from 20 to 22, like you said. So it's going to be more traffic. But guess what? The cars are shorter and narrower, so maybe we won't notice a difference at all. Now, so what's interesting about the driver pairings as we, dive further into the teams and drivers for this season. Last year, there was, let's see, Hadger, 5 or 6, because Doohan only did a few races and then got replaced by Colapinto. So I think it was, 4, 5, or 6. I don't want to do the counting now, but it was.
Yeah, and then Lawson, kind of whether you determine him to be a rookie or not.
Yeah, because he did a few races the year before, but like Bortoletto and Hadger and Behrman, Antonelli, and Colapinto, Doohan. Yeah, so maybe even up to 7 if you include Lawson. And this year there's only one rookie, and his name is Arvid Lindblad, and he's on Racing Bulls. But I'm going to run quickly through the driver pairings and the teams, and then Dave, if you have any commentary on what you think about these gentlemen, I'd love to hear it. So we're just going to go in alphabetical order. Alpine is Pierre Gasly and Colapinto. Aston Martin is Alonso and Stroll. Audi is Hülkenberg and Bortoletto. Cadillac, again, Perez and Bottas. Ferrari, Leclerc and Hamilton. Haas, Ocon and Behrman. McLaren, still Norris and Piastri. Mercedes, still Russell and Antonelli. The Racing Bulls, Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad. And then Red Bull's got Verstappen and Isaac Hadger makes the jump from Racing Bulls up to Red Bull in his second season. And then Williams, Sainz, and Albon.
Yeah. So, again, I think McLaren overall, Norris and Piastri are probably the two. Well, they have the 2 drivers that any other team would probably like to have. And then, you have Leclerc and Hamilton, similar boat that I think any other team would take those guys. And then in terms of Verstappen and Hadger, I think Hadger is going to have a great year. I think he might be the guy.
You're high on Isaac, okay.
Yes, I think, and it's particularly with the new cars that haven't been totally dialed in for Verstappen. I think he's going to have a chance to really have some input in this car, and I think you're going to see him up there. So that's one of the things I do think that you'll see happening there. And again, we basically hit on the top 4 teams with those right there.
Yeah.
And I think the drivers are one of the biggest factors in that. Obviously, there are also teams with money and things like that, but yeah, that's kind of my initial thought on those. Nothing earth-breaking or earth-shattering. Haas, another one that maybe has a couple of really good drivers. I think they're going to do well this year, so better than they have in years past.
Well, that's not hard to do. I think your insight, though, in the brand new car not being locked in for Verstappen, I think that I never thought about that, never crossed my mind. I think that's a great point. And 2, I think Hadger's a good driver.
I do think he's a good driver as well, and I think he's demonstrated that. So, and
that's the reason he got the seat, right?
Yep.
And
I think perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he's going to have, to your point, the best opportunity to compete with Verstappen than any of the previous, Yuki Tsunoda or Liam Lawson or even Sergio Perez, right? Yep. Who did well for a while and then kind of fell off. So, I think that's a great point, Dave. I really do.
Yeah. So it has not been since I'm going to draw a blank on his name now. The Honey Badger left Red Bull.
Daniel Ricciardo?
Yeah. Has he had somebody, I think, that is going to fill that second seat? So,
all right. Now, do you want to talk us through the engine suppliers? Because there are some changes here.
Yeah, there are quite a few changes here. Mercedes power unit is definitely strong. They have their team, the Mercedes teams. McLaren is running them. Williams and Alpine, all 4 of those are with Mercedes, and all 4 of those were Mercedes last year. Is that correct?
I know for sure Mercedes, McLaren, and Williams were, and I'm like 50-50 on Alpine.
Yeah, I can't remember on Alpine, to be honest with you. So then Ferrari, Haas, and Cadillac, the 2 American, quote-unquote, American teams, have the Ferrari unit, which also looks very good. Red Bull, as you mentioned already, has moved away from Honda and has brought Ford on. Aston Martin is the one that Honda went to. And one of the things that we might discuss longer or down the road was, I know at one point Red Bull had, even though they'd moved away from Honda, Honda was still doing their engines, and Red Bull was moving towards doing their own powertrain. I don't know if the Ford coming on, where that stands with that, but that might be something interesting to look into down the road. And then finally, Audi is running their own power unit.
Which is interesting because Sauber was running the Ferrari engine, I believe. And so Cadillac replaces Sauber in the Ferrari lineup. And then obviously the Red Bull and Racing Bulls are running their engine.
Oh, Racing Bull, yeah, has Ford as well.
Formerly known as AlphaTauri. Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, we've got 5 different engine suppliers across 11 different teams. That's definitely going to be a talking point throughout the season, as it always is, as to who's up and who's down and who's having, performance issues or reliability issues, and, who's got to take the ill-timed engine replacement penalty and start from, the back of the grid or the pit lane, depending on when it happens. We'll see.
So back to a little bit to our earlier, I honestly think you're going to see Honda come around, and it would not surprise me if Ford ends up being the one that has the trouble in the long run. But maybe there's just my bias coming through on that.
Well, but Honda's also been in and around Formula 1 as an engine provider a lot longer. So I think that's not an unreasonable take at this point of, the season technically not starting. We're still in preseason. But Aston Martin's having other issues too, right? Reliability stuff. Lance Stroll, didn't even set a time, I think, at the Bahrain, if I read that article correctly. So we'll see. But always a good competition there. All right. So should we jump into the regulations briefly?
Yeah,
I think?
Let's do it. Yep.
Here's our disclaimer. If you want, actually, I'm going to recommend a couple things to you here. But if you want to know everything about the regulations, I mean, you're listening to a Formula 1 podcast put on by two people you've never met before. So if that's the case, chances are you're into this. If you haven't done so yet, go to Formula1.com. They've got an awesome section on all the new regulations for 2026. They've got a great video giving you the visuals of all the changes to the cars, and we'll talk about some of that. But this is going to be an overview. This is not going to be an in-depth, let's talk about, the compression ratio of the engine that Mercedes is theoretically loopholing. You can go read articles about that. All right.
And like you said, F1 has done a great job. I think they've
absolutely
been far ahead of the curve in terms of letting fans know what the changes are, and like you said, explaining what it means.
I mean, I even found a reel they put on Instagram with Bernie Collins narrating it, and it's all of the different light options and combinations for the back of the car. The colors, the long beep, short beep, Morse code, it's 15 to 20 different possible things that light could be communicating to the driver behind. Guys, you could have just put 3 lights on there and made it a lot less complicated. But, whatever. They're smart people. Yes. They can do what they want. So I'll have a link in the show notes for the overview video. It's 8 minutes long, but it's super helpful, and will tell you pretty much everything you want to know and actually show you it as well. The first thing on our list, Dave, is there's no drag reduction system, or DRS, as we have come to know it from the previous era of Formula 1. It is being replaced by something different. So we can wave bye-bye to DRS.
Yes. Yeah, and we have 2 new modes. There's the boost button, boost mode, and there's overtake mode that are supposedly supposed to replace the idea of giving that driver extra power at different points on the track, and to be able to, what DRS helped do was when you get behind somebody, give you that extra little bit that you needed to be able to pass them. So what are the differences between boost and overtake, Cam?
So the boost button isn't new functionality. It's just the new term for what used to be deploying the extra battery power that they would have, that they would charge up throughout the lap, and they could deploy either in defense or an attempt to attack. They're just calling it boost now. And then again, this just changes the power unit settings and lets them get a certain amount of, extra boost. This would be, the classic hammer time call on the radio for Lewis Hamilton. Whereas overtake is, in theory, supposed to help deliver closer racing and give you better overtaking opportunities. And this is where it differs from DRS. Usually on the Formula 1 tracks, there would be anywhere from 2 to 3 DRS zones where you would have to be within a second at the checkpoint, and then you could deploy DRS for the indicated, section of the track. This one, you still have to be within a second of the car at the detection point, and it's usually in the final corner. It'll depend on some of the track configurations. And per Formula1.com, it allows a driver to recharge an extra 0.5 megajoules. I don't know how much that is, but it sounds fun. Megajoules. And it gives them extra power to allow them to sustain a higher speed for a longer period, but it can only be used on the following lap. So if you're on lap 6, you're ending lap 6, you trigger the overtake mode, you have to use it then on lap 7. If you don't use it on lap 7, you'll lose it. So, yeah, it's a use it or lose it sort of deal. Yeah. So essentially, again, boost button is just a new name for something that already existed and isn't changing in functionality. Overtake mode is the replacement for DRS. And overtake mode interacts with the new active aerodynamics. Can you tell us about that, Dave?
So, yeah, one of the biggest changes is that, when we talked about DRS, there were changes that were being able to be made to the rear wing. And with the active aerodynamics, we now have the front wing involved, and the back wing will be able to be moved as well. So they call it like an open position where there's the low drag. And as we talked about earlier, I don't want to steal your thunder on this, but Ferrari has come up with a very unique way of interpreting this. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, so as I was just getting prepped for the episode, I saw this video, and it's, in old DRS, the wings would just kind of like go from their 35-degree angle or whatever, and then just go parallel with the ground. Mm-hmm. And then, so there'd be the big gap, and then they would close back. Well, in this one, instead of just opening parallel with the ground, it does like a full 270-degree flip. So it's up. So the top part of the wing is completely upside down. And so it's concave, rounded on the top with the scoop facing the ground. And then when it closes, it does that reverse 270-ish degree to close the wing and have that scoop facing the sky to act as downforce. So it goes from acting as creating downforce to actually creating a little bit of lift. So it's even less drag than being parallel. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah, so again, the purpose of the wings is to affect the downforce, more traction, less downforce. Hopefully they're getting more speed in that. And so overall in this testing, from my observations, it seems like these cars have less downforce overall. It seemed like there was a lot more of the rear ends coming around on the drivers as they were going around the track. So that'll be interesting to see how that affects the drivers in the racing and who is skilled at doing that and who is not.
Yeah, I think the drivers that can get their heads around because not only are the cars shorter and narrower, but so are the front wings and the back wings. So overall, there's just, by the limits of physics, there's less downforce. Because there's less surface area for the air to push on,
and the tires are
smaller, right? So there's less grip, less downforce, and so I think the drivers early on in the season that can at least not screw up are going to have a distinct advantage points wise early in the season because they'll be able to, if they're not the ones spinning out, but they're the ones maintaining control of their cars, they're going to be getting more points. And while it's always fun to see a safe spin out, someone. Like, you don't want these guys to get hurt. It's dangerous, but, there is something spectacular about seeing a car do 3 or 4 rotations and then, gently tap the wall. Glad he's okay. That was kind of fun. And so I think it's a fairly obvious thing to say. Whoever makes the least mistakes is going to get the most points. But in a season where everyone is learning at such a exponentially quick rate on what works and what doesn't and input and working at the factories and all of that and just gathering as much data as possible, the people that can get a leg up early are going to not necessarily win because maybe they can't, learn as quick, but it's very engaging. I saw Formula 1 put out, this will make sense in a second, I promise, put out this really cool video on Instagram. If I can find it, I'll link it in the show notes. And it's this guy who's talking through the new regulations and the history of Formula 1, but he's drawing it all out on a dot grid paper. And it's awesome and it's super detailed. And one of the things that he brings up is every time there has been a massive rule change like there is this year, there was always an established team that had won multiple constructors or drivers championships in years. And then every single time in the modern era where there's been this massive regulation shift, that first season was a team that hadn't won it in a long time, constructors or drivers, right? And so the whole point of that was everyone thinks it's going to be one of the big four, but what if Williams just comes out of nowhere and wins it this year? Sure. Because they were the ones to figure it out first. Because I know a number of teams stopped working on the 2025 car essentially in the first quarter of the 2025 season so they could get extra time to focus on the 2026 car. So they forfeited 2025 in order to try and give themselves a better shot at upending the known hierarchy in 2026. So yeah, we're about to get to our predictions, and all of this stuff is bouncing around in my head, and like I have no idea what I'm gonna pick because there's just so much unknown. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
We mentioned the smaller, lighter cars. The last thing that I want to throw in here, just because it's going to be at some point a talking point when something goes wrong. It's a near 50-50 split between internal combustion engine power and battery power now. So they've reduced the amount of engine or internal combustion engine power, and I think more than tripled the amount of battery power that they're using. And they're using a new like eco-friendly biofuel or whatever as well. But I think they've been doing that for a while. But the point is, at some point, the power delivery is going to become a talking point because someone's, battery is going to crap the bed or whatever. I mean, that happens every season, but because these cars are so much more reliant on it now. But hey, I'm all for being more eco-friendly in a sport that is global and massive and probably has the carbon footprint of like multiple countries. So hey, let's try and lower that a bit maybe.
Yeah, where most of it's probably the jet fuel that they use to get all the cars and everybody everywhere more than it is the cars on the track for a couple of hours.
Well, and shipping all of that stuff, from race to race, like the big, just trailers worth of stuff that they have for the pit wall and the hospitality stuff and the places where the drivers sleep at the track, those big giant like unfolding transformer buildings, which I would love to watch a walkthrough of because that's just super cool to me from an engineering perspective. But anyways, all right. Do you want to do our predictions now or save those for the end? And then we can either do them now and then talk through the schedule, or do the schedule now and then do our predictions at the end. What do you think?
We can do the schedule. I don't think we need to hit on everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can certainly let's do schedule and then finish with our predictions.
Perfect. So the first half of the 2026 season runs from March 6th through July 26th. And that's the first Friday of the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne to the Sunday that ends the Hungarian Grand Prix. We're back in China, I think, for the second straight year now. Miami's on there. Monaco obviously is in the first half. And you get the Red Bull Ring in Austria and Silverstone in Great Britain and Spa. So, like, there's a lot of classic good tracks. Canada, that's a good track as well. Suzuka in Japan. So that's not all the races, but there's quite a good mix of, tracks that we haven't done a lot of and just really classic ones as well in the first half. And then second half, there's obviously the summer break, July 27th through August 20th. And then we're back. We start the second half at Zandvoort in the Netherlands on August 21st. And that takes us all the way to Abu Dhabi on December 6th, the final Grand Prix. So 9 months in total for this season from start to finish, including the summer break.
Yeah, that is crazy that it goes from March to December.
Yeah. And second half, as I said, it's got Zandvoort, Monza. We're in Madrid for the first time since I've been watching Formula 1. So there's 2 Spanish Grand Prix, one in Barcelona, one in Madrid this year. Singapore's back on, I think, for the second or third year. And then obviously we're in Vegas as well. So, yeah, it's a lot of races, man.
It is a lot of races.
But I'm looking forward to it. I think my favorite track is Spa in Belgium. That crazy down and up chicane is it has a name. I can't remember right now. Don't be mad at me, people. But I'm excited to see what Madrid looks like because I don't think I've ever seen a race there. So that'll be cool. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
I think one of my thoughts is a little ridiculous that America has 3 races, but
it's all about the money, baby. It
is all about the money. I don't think Las Vegas has turned out to be quite what they thought it was going to be, but that's all right. Yeah, I think I hope they don't add any more. I mean, this is really kind of, to me, I get they'd be racing all year round if they add any more races. I love it. When there's no racing going on, I'm wishing that there was. So it'll be nice to have the additional races, but it is a long season. So
yeah, it's 24 Grand Prix. And I think maybe the smaller cars might actually make Vegas a little more exciting because they'll give them more space. Yeah, I just think the cars were just too darn big for that track, which is wild because they brought that track in when they had the giant cars. So it's just a power move, I guess. More money. All right, and that means, oh my gosh, we are 2 weeks away as of this recording from the start of the season. So I think that means we better get our predictions in.
All right. Have you landed on them yet? We have to commit now.
Yeah, we got to commit now. And maybe we can do a halfway during the summer break. We can say, okay, this is what we thought at the beginning. Are we going to change our predictions based on how the first half has gone? Or are we going to double down? All right, so for Constructors Championship, oh boy, it's easy to pick McLaren just because they've won the last few. But again, it's a new day. And I'm going to go, I think, a little potentially, not crazy, but maybe a little contrarian. I'm going to go with Ferrari, knowing that they always make stupid strategy choices and blow stuff. But hey, I think Hamilton's got one good shot left in him, and I like Leclerc. So let's see what happens. Let's roll the dice.
Yes. So I like that pick. That would have been it. So I was going to go either. I'm going to go different than you just because, and I'm going to go with McLaren. And I'm fully aware of, I'm in agreement with what you said earlier of when we come into new cars, you tend to see the people that have won it recently not be there. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to go with McLaren because I think they've got the two drivers that are consistently going to put people in the points.
Yeah. Well, and
so
sorry,
that's my reason for McLaren. I think Ferrari has the potential for that, but I'm actually going to say that I think we're going to see the continued decline of Hamilton.
Okay. I mean, I think getting up there.
Yeah. I don't think he's bad. I think he will be in the points, but I think the gap between him and Leclerc will become, Leclerc will be the better driver between the two is what I'm going to say. So,
yeah. I think too, the thing about McLaren is they have a clear team culture and structure, and Piastri and Norris, while competitive with each other, seem to not hate each other and seem to be willing to play the team game 95% of the time. And occasionally Lando just shoves it in and then comes on the radio and goes, "I'm sorry, that was my fault." But there's not much, and who knows, maybe there will be this year because Piastri had the lead for so long last season and then wound up losing it. But they do seem to be guys that can work together better than, say, I don't know, Lewis and Nico or Max and anybody.
Right.
Especially when he was younger. Oh. Anyways, all right. So Ferrari for me, McLaren for you. Drivers' Championship. Oh boy, there's only 22 to pick from. What are the odds? I mean, I know who my heart wants it to be. But Valtteri Bottas is not winning the Drivers' Championship in a first-year Cadillac. All right, I'm trying to decide if I want to just, go for it or play it safe. You know what I mean? I feel like I kind of went for it with the Ferrari pick, so I think maybe for the Drivers' one, I'll be a little more conservative. And I'm going to go Piastri.
Okay.
Just for funsies.
So
I love how I said I was going to go conservative, and I picked the guy who's never won one. Maybe that was the wrong word to use. I think that was the wrong word to use.
So we're going to
safe in the sense that he's on a good team. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So we're going to flip flop here, and I'm going to do Leclerc and I could go quite a few different people, but I just feel like Leclerc is going to put it together this year, and Ferrari, and he'll I think Russell's going to be up there. I think both the McLarens are going to be up there. Max will be up there. Max will be another. I just can't bring myself to pick Max. I would not be surprised if Max.
I'm glad you said it, not me.
So, and here's the thing. Max is growing on me. I like him more than I did, but I can't root for him just yet. So,
well, yeah, I mean, you compare how Max handled the 2025 season versus how he handled any of the seasons where he was fighting with Lewis from a emotional maturity standpoint, from an on-track safety and maturity standpoint. Like he was so much more adult and reasonable, and even at certain points kind and complimentary to Oscar and to Norris last season. And I was like, oh my God, like, has he finally grown up or realized, how to treat other people? So I was very impressed with him last season in the way he carried himself. I would say probably 95% of the time it was, but to your point too, like I'm not quite on the bandwagon yet. I need to see that repeated a second time before I can go, okay, yeah, maybe he really has grown up. Because remember, when he started in Formula 1, he was a kid. He was so young. Yeah, he's like, 24 now? Yeah, but he started super young. So anyways, judging a person's character whom I have never met, just how they act on television.
Right. Yes, exactly.
That's the American way, I suppose. All right, so biggest boom. Dave, I need to ask you for a definition here. Because when I think of biggest boom, I'm thinking of someone who we had low expectations for coming into the season and who blew those expectations out of the water.
Yeah, so that would be my take on it, is who is going to surpass expectations. So like if you think Lando Norris is going to, he's going to break Verstappen's record and he is going to win 20 of 24 races, that would be the biggest boom. But they're exceeding their expectations, not just, we have high expectations for Lando, but he has kind of one of those legend type seasons, then he could be there. Or you could say Valtteri, he's going to finish in the top 5, because nobody expects him to be that high up because he's racing for Cadillac in their first year.
Gotcha. And then biggest bust would be the opposite. Someone we have really high expectations for who winds up just taking a dump, right?
Yeah, and here's the other thing I'll say is if you want to do, I think I had drivers in mind when I wrote this, but as we've been talking, I could see a constructor being listed for either of those two.
That was going to be my next question. Is this only drivers or, yeah. So I think drivers and constructors for these two categories is more interesting. Okay, so for my biggest boom, I'm going to go with the smooth operator.
Oh, there you go.
I just think obviously it's a new car, but him and Williams got on the same page towards the end of the season. He had a couple podiums, and I think he can drive. I think he kind of got screwed out at Ferrari because of Hamilton coming in.
Yep, and I think that was a mistake, but
yeah,
like you said, it's about
time
money.
will tell. And again, this is me banking on one of the unexpected teams doing really well in the new era. I think they got on the same page, like I said, and I think he's got the talent, and he's also one of those fun guys that I like to see, like in the interviews and what he does on social media, because he's clearly an absolute goofball off the track. So
yes,
that's scores points with me all the time.
So my driver is going to be Pierre Gasly.
Ooh,
I think him. I can't. I don't know if I can put Alpine with him, but I think they'll be good. I think Pierre's going to he's going to be in that conversation of the best of the rest after our top 4.
Okay.
So yes, and he will significantly outscore his teammate throughout the season, which is not saying much with qualification. But, I mean.
Shots fired.
Yeah. So, all right.
Man, all right. So my biggest bust. I mean, I think the hot take would be Mercedes, because everyone's saying they're the team to beat, coming out of testing and yada, yada, yada. And so just to be contrarian, but I also don't want to lose. Man. Because there's only a handful, even less drivers that we're expecting. Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, Leclerc, Russell are probably everyone's top 5 in varying orders of who they expect to, do really well this season. And I don't want to pick my biggest bust on someone whose personality annoys me. That just feels petty and a dumb way to judge. Are you going constructor or driver for yours?
I was probably thinking constructor.
Here's what I'm going to say. Biggest bust is going to be Red Bull. Well, they lost. So Horner's gone and Helmut Marko's gone. Again, we talked really highly about Isaac Hadjar. I think we both think he's a really good driver and absolutely deserves a seat. And to your point, might even have the best chance because it's a new car and not set in stone. But I also know that McLaren took the top spot from them, and there's been internal turmoil to the point that Horner did get let go. And so do I think I'm going to get this one right? No. But if I'm going to get it right, I do want to call it out early so that I can brag about it later on. Plus, picking Cadillac to be the biggest bust that's not like a good pick, because no one expects them to do great their first season. You know what I mean? So like if they finish last, no one's going to be like, oh, shock of all shocks. They're going to be like, yeah, welcome to Formula 1. Like, this is really hard to do, and everyone kind of expects Aston Martin to not do well. So I can't pick them. No one knows what's going to happen to Audi. It's a new engine. They were kind of meh last year. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to pick somebody near the top in order for it to be the biggest bust, because that means, a big swing and a miss. So that's my logic. Whether or not that comes to fruition is an entirely different story. What say you, Dave? Who's your biggest bust? I'm interested.
One of the things I think, I'll just go with the direct answer. So my biggest bust is going to be Mercedes.
I thought about that one too. I really.
And this is what I'm going to say is I think they are going to get a jump on the season, and everybody's going to think very highly of them and talking about them winning a championship in the first half, and by the summer break they will have fallen behind everybody else. Not everybody else. They're not going to be number 1 or number 2.
All right. So Dave takes my contrarian pick and actually puts finger to key and types it in the doc. I like it.
So, yeah, I do. And the other thing I will say is I think they're going to start strong.
That's what everyone seems to be saying based on, the testing. But Toto Wolff's hearing none of it, which I love. I do enjoy Toto. He's huge Toto Wolff fan. So, and I think all top 4, to however you want to say it, they have not tipped their hands. They've been sandbagging. Yeah, 100%.
And I think you're going to see, the other thing I think you'll see is I think Aston Martin is going to get their act together. They'll start slow and they'll climb, but it still won't be enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, unless you have any other nuggets of F1 wisdom to drop on us, Dave, I think we've officially completed episode 0 of our new show. Yeah. This was really fun.
Yeah, I'm with you. It was a good time.
All right, friends. Thanks for listening. And we will be back in a couple of weeks with our recap of all of the news and action at the Australian Grand Prix, which again happens March 6th through the 8th in Melbourne, Australia. I wish I could go so badly, but alas, that ain't happening. But we'll be watching it on television, and then Dave and I will get back together and bring you all of our thoughts and recaps and storylines from the first Grand Prix weekend. Dave, I don't know about you. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. Yes. All right. Well, then we'll be back in a couple weeks. Thanks again so much for listening. Take care.